All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's session on how to debug your apps from anywhere with Sauce Labs Virtual USB. We're really happy to see such a huge interest in our session, and of course we've also reserved some time for questions at the end, which you'll probably have. So let's start with a short introduction so you know who you're talking to today, or who's talking to you. I'm Carla, Senior Product Manager Mobile at Sauce Labs. I've been active in the Berlin startup scene and tech scene for the last 10 years, and I worked for several companies, most recently in fintech and software as a service.
Okay, my name is Wim Sellis. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at Sauce Labs, and I love to do mobile, and I'm really enthusiastic also to tell you more about our virtual USB offering.
All right, so the title of the session is Debug Your Apps from Anywhere with Sauce Labs Virtual USB, because from a lot of customer feedback, and especially from talking to developers, it became clear that during your daily work, you face the challenge of troubleshooting on real devices. As a developer especially, you want to know what's really going on the device. And traditionally, you would connect the device to your local machine, and you're all set. That sounds pretty nice. But in reality, it's usually quite different. In real life, you probably have a device card in the office, which includes maintenance of the device card. You have to know where the device is. Maybe it's lying on someone else's deck or it's in use. You need to charge it, find the USB cable. Then it's finally working and you have to wait for all the updates to finish because it hasn't been used in a while. And then also the next problem becomes obvious. Maybe you don't have the customer-specific device in your device card. So you need to provision it, also maintain it. How do you do that when you're remote? Then a concerning thing for managers especially is the theft of devices. Devices just disappear. And now when you're working remotely, I already mentioned it, especially with COVID-19, you're working remotely and need to move to the cloud. So because of all these reasons, we built the virtual USB feature. And you probably guessed it that the name comes from the idea of a very long USB cable from your local machine to the desired device in the cloud. So how does it actually work? So on your local machine, you open the terminal and establish a connection to the Sauce Labs Real Device Cloud Server. That's the first step. And the second step, you open ADB and establish a connection to one or several of the private devices in the cloud. And that's it. That's how it works. And now, of course, we are really excited to see how this looks in practice. Over to you, Wim.
Just let me share my screen and share this one. Yes, well, thank you, Carla, for also explaining what you can do with virtual USB. But now let's take a look at it. It's demo time. And to get started with virtual USB, you need to have a virtual USB client, like Carla already explained. You can go to our wiki on wiki.saucelabs.com and search for virtual USB. And I already prepared that, so let me take that one for you. On this wiki page, you can find all the instructions. And if you would scroll a little bit down, you could see the client, and you can also see iOS virtual USB. You might already see that and wonder, okay, what can I do with that? We will get back to that one later on. When you downloaded the client to your local computer, you need to do two things. First of all, you need to have that server connection between your local machine and the data center where the private devices are hosted, and you need to connect to a device with the virtual USB client. So how do you do that? Well, the steps are explained, like I said, here on the wiki page. But if you do not have the wiki page for you and you downloaded the client, you can just open the terminal and use a command like this, java -jar, and then do virtual USB server and provide the command help. Here you will get an overview of all the commands you can use. For example, how can you start a server? Which command line arguments do you need to provide? How can you start a session, or how can you connect to a specific session? All those commands are explained here. Well, now we first need to connect to the data center, and this can be done with the following commands: java -jar virtual USB client, and then we need to provide server. In this case, we also need to provide the argument for the data center. Depends on where your private devices are. You can have them in the US or you can have them in the EU. And so for now, we're going to start this client with the connecting to the European data center. Then when we need to connect to a device, we need to do a few things before we can start the connection. First of all, you need to have the API key, and this is not your project key, like the key that a lot of users know from the TestObject cloud, but you need to have your API key, and you can find that when you go to the legacy RDC, and you can find it under account and then under profile. The second thing you need to have is the device name for a private device, and let me just show you how you can collect that one. You log in to SaaS Labs, you then go to cross-browser testing, for example, select the mobile devices, and then, for example, you have the devices here. If you will click on detail, you will see the specific device name here. When you've got that device name, then you have two options to connect to that device with virtual USB. You can connect by starting a fresh session, meaning there is no current manual or automated session with the device, or you can connect to an existing session. And for example, if you want to debug a running session, and please check the options which I've shown you here on the right, or please contact us if you need more information about that. For now, we're going to start a new session with the following command. We're going to do java -jar virtual USB, then we're going to start a session, and then we need to provide our API key, and we need to provide the device name. I'm now already going to connect to this device. And I only wanted to give you one tip. If you're going to use that API key, store it in an environment variable, so you don't need to remember it all the time. Then, if you've established a connection with your device, you will get two things back. First of all, you will get back a shared URL. That's this URL. This is a URL which you can enter in your browser and will give you the opportunity to have manual interaction with that device. The second thing you will get back is a port number. This is the port number you need to have to connect to ADB and connect the device really to your local machine. Let us first now connect to the device by using the URL. When we do that, we will get something like this. Here you would see the device. We can just interact with the device. We can go, for example, to Chrome, and we can, for example, go to saucelabs.com. As you can see, the device is behaving the same way as you would do in a normal manual session. The second thing we need to do is we need to connect to the device through ADB. And we can do that with a command called ADB connect, but just to show you that I'm not fooling you, that I didn't have a device already connected to my local machine, I'm going to use the command ADB devices -L, and here you will see that there is no device attached to my local machine. So now I need to do ADB connect, then localhost, and provide the port number. In this case, I got back port number 7001. So I add this one and press enter. I need to wait a few seconds, and then I will see that I got the confirmation that it's connected to my local host. And now, to show you that it's really connected, let me get the device list again. And as you can see here, the device is now connected to my local machine. So now that we've set up a session, let's get back to the use case as Carla mentioned before. And let's start with the first use case, live debugging. And for live debugging, we've got two options. First of all, the live debugging for a web application, as we can see it here. And the second thing is live debugging for a native application. Let's start also with the first one. Live debugging of a website works the same as you would normally connect your device to your local machine. Because the device is now connected to ADB, we can use Chrome on the device, open the website like we've already did, and go to Chrome in our own browser and enter Chrome // inspect, and we would now see that the device is connected to my local Chrome instance. I can click on the inspect button, and that will open the DevTools. And as you can see here, We can do almost everything what we would normally also be able to do with a device connected to a local machine. I can, for example, watch the network traffic, and by refreshing the page, I can see all the statics that are downloaded for this specific website. But there's more. I can also adjust or do something with the styling. Maybe there's a specific issue that this button does not need to be rounded. I can just change it here, and you will see it reflecting on the DevTools, but also on the real device. But I can even change data like learn more about SOS, labs, vUSB. If I would change that, you will again see that it's reflected on and the DevTools, but also on the device itself. The second option you have to debug is to debug a native application with, for example, Android Studio. So let's open Android Studio. I got it here on the right, and Android Studio is open. Here you will see a sample app for Android. And here in the drop-down, you can already see that the device is now automatically connected to Android Studio. So when I select it, I've got the opportunity to also push my application, which you're seeing here, and push the application to the device itself. And this comes to the second part that Carla mentioned. We can now do some pre-production testing by pushing the application to the device by clicking on the button. Let me push it, and it should now be pushed to the device. It's running in the background. And when we're doing this, we've got some, oh, this one is in front. Should be pushing it now to the device. Nice thing of the demo. Let's do it again. Yes, and there it comes. We can now also do some device inspection by, for example, checking the logs. We can see what is happening on the device based on the application that I pushed. But we can also do some performance monitoring. We've got a profiler here in Android Studio, which we can attach to the device. And I already did some profiling of the application on an emulator of Android. And there you would see that you would only get back, for example, the memory. But if you would do this on a real device in the cloud, you can get more data back. For example, the CPU usage or the memory usage, the network traffic, and even the energy consumption. This is all available when you're connecting the device with virtual USB to your local machine, giving you the option to debugging the application under real circumstances. But there's more. Now that we have the device connected to our local machine, we can also run, for example, espresso test cases. So let me select the dialer test, click the press button. It will now build the test cases. And hopefully on the left, we would see also the espresso test cases running. Let me run it again. Running on the device. And while the tests are running, I want to mention here that this also opens the door now to whatever automation framework you want to use in our cloud. You can even use frameworks that we now do not support out of the box. But as said, virtual USB behaves like if you would connect your device to your local machine. We now even have access to folders, the folder system of the device itself. We can access, for example, the SD card. And maybe we can even do more. We can even use ADB commands to take, for example, a screenshot. So let's do that. ADB shell screen cap. Whoa, we need to add a space. ADB shell screen cap. And I'm now going to create a screenshot of this specific device with an ADB command. And if I would refresh my SD card, synchronize it, I would see that the screenshot is added here. I even got the option to open the screenshot in my editor, but like I said, we can also access it on the phone itself, going to the gallery and even seeing the screenshot here. This gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want with the device. And I'm not done yet. There's even more to show you. We also want to show you a virtual USB GUI that has been made by the community. It demonstrates how our solutions are open and that everyone can build something on top of that. And to be able to do that, I first need to disconnect the session, I need to go to my editor, again, disconnect the session from ADB, kill the server here, and let me open the virtual USB client. The virtual USB client you're seeing here gives you the opportunity to select your device from a GUI, to also connect to a device from the GUI. The only thing you need to do is start the server, then select a device by, for example, selecting this device. It will automatically connect the device to your machine when it is available and give you also a link back when it is connected, where you can also start the live test like we already did with the terminals, but now in a much more useful way than with the runner itself. If you would stop the session, it would also automatically disconnect from ADB and stop the session. So you can download the virtual USB GUI from here. And it is built by the community based on the publicly available endpoints of Sauce Labs. And when you install it, you will have a nice interface, like we said, that will do everything for you. You can access even the logs, start new sessions, and so on. So hopefully I made you enthusiastic into looking into virtual USB. And now let's get back to Carla.
Thank you so much, Wim, for this presentation, for showing us so many possibilities in the demo. I can imagine our audience has now their heads spinning. So I want to summarize the points for them just really briefly. So what we heard is that if you put virtual USB in one sentence, it means you're renting a device from the cloud and you use it in any way you want. The device is also accessible from your local machine, and you can use it for debugging, developing, for testing, as you wish, as it is your need. You can also see that this is especially useful in the early stages of development, as you can really know what's going on in the devices. Plus, you can use any native framework that you like, even those that are not supported on a Sauce Labs platform yet, because you're using your local machine to directly interact with the device. Virtual USB gives you full control of the device. You can access the file system, look at the CPU usage, you can view the logs, really anything. And that's also the reason why this functionality is only available for private devices. It's security concerns. And you can also make manual and automated testings as it fits your use case. So for example, you can introduce some breakpoints and then do exploratory testing from there. The sky's really the limit. So how can you start using virtual USB? For Android, well, as I said, first you need private devices. And for Android, you can simply go to our cookbook and download the jar file. You will also find all the instructions that Wim just showed on the page there as well. For iOS, we are in closed beta. So if you want to have the current version of our iOS virtual USB client, you can contact your customer success managers. And that's already the summary. Now we would love for you to ask questions. I heard already that we have some in the channel, in the Q&A channel. And the very first one being this has to use the private cloud, not the public cloud. Yes, as I just said, private devices are needed for that because you really have full access on everything on the device. So Wim, do you want to take the next question?
Let me get to the question. Sorry. I'm seeing here a question about, I'm a Sauce Labs customer and I have access to private devices. How can I start using virtual USB? Well, that's already explained on this slide to download it from the cookbook. But will this also be available for emulators and simulators on the Sauce Labs virtual machine cloud? Well, currently this is only available on the real device cloud. And I don't know, Carla, if there are also thoughts about the EmuSim cloud. Don't know if you can answer that question.
No.
No, currently only the real device cloud of Sauce Labs.
All right, let me take the next question. If I connect to a physical device, will it contain the tests done by a previous tester company? Are they deleted after every usage? So that again refers back to private devices or public devices. Since in the private device cloud, the devices are really yours. The only other users would be your colleagues. And of course, we have, after each usage, also a cleaning process there. So that's standard. And of course, you have the records of your tests in the Sauce Labs platform.
I also see a question coming in about, does it also work with Sauce Connect proxy? And let me just share back my screen, because the tools, let me get to the tools, let me get to the desktop, share, and to this one. Yes. If you would also look at the clients, for example, which you can download, the visual clients, you even have the option to provide a tunnel identifier. So if your website or if your services are behind an internal network or a corporate proxy, you have the opportunity to use Sauce Connect, start it on your local machine, then you will get back your tunnel identifier. And here in this field, you just need to provide that tunnel identifier, and then the virtual USB client will use that tunnel identifier to get back all the data from, to kind of like secure all the data that the device is trying to use. So hopefully that will answer the question.
Okay, there's the next one. Is there any limit on the number of devices that can be connected via virtual USB? Is it possible to run a suite of automated tests against a pool of devices? You can probably answer that, Wim.
Well, first of all, you use virtual USB to debug your application. I think what you're referring to in this question is kind of like the automation itself. If you would run multiple test cases with Appian, for example, you can just do that without using virtual USB. You can already do that in the current setup. This is really meant for debugging your application, or maybe using a framework that we do not support in our cloud, but you still want to connect to real devices. In that case, it doesn't matter. It just, the only limitation there is the amount of private devices you have to connect to.
Okay, and then there's another question. Are the devices jailbroken, as you can get into folders? So they're not jailbroken. We don't have the root access there. We have software, of course, that enables those functionalities, but we're not jailbreaking them. So
basically, you, especially also for Android, you've got the same rights on your device, which you also would have in our cloud. So if you are able to access the file system on your local device, on your private, on your own device, you've got the same options also on the Sauce Labs cloud. And that's also one of the reasons why it's only on private devices. So if you remove something, then only one device for your company is affected, and not all the devices.
Okay, there's another question. Can we shuffle the private devices pool with configuration we want, or we can only work with limited private devices assigned to account? So that's probably like you're talking about the private devices in your account. So you would book whatever, how many devices you want to. You can also say which device type you want to have in your private device cloud. And that's your limited set, however you limited want to have it. So you can have a set of 10 devices. You can also say you need 250 of different device types. That's really how much of a private device pool you want to have. And then you can do with these devices whatever configuration you need. So you can whitelist stuff on the private devices. You can have the functionality of virtual USB with it. You have several other options that you can do, since it's your private devices, nobody else is using them, just you, that you can use and make possible there. I hope I answered that question.
I also see a question about, can I use my own framework like Robot Framework? Yes, as long as Robot Framework is able to connect to Sauce Labs, and with Robot Framework, you're just executing also Appian commands. You can just connect it to the Sauce Labs cloud. There's no restriction in using virtual USB for that. Okay, I'm just going through the questions.
So there's one question. Can you integrate calendar to reserve the device? I guess that refers again to the public cloud, where you don't have all the private devices readily available, but we're in the public cloud and devices are shared amongst other customers as well. So if you really want to make sure that you have the specific device available to you 24/7, then that would be a strong indicator to book the private cloud. In the public cloud, we have a huge variety of devices, so it's larger than in your private cloud. But of course, it comes with a not guaranteed availability. It could be busy because somebody else is using it.
And just a simple tip, if you want to use, if you don't need to use a specific device, but you want to use a certain version of Android or a certain version of iOS, and it doesn't matter if it's on, for example, the iPhone 6, 7, 8, or whatever, you can also use dynamic allocation. If you go to the test object cloud, to the legacy RDC page, then you will go to the Appium settings and also the setup instructions. There you will find more instructions on how to use dynamic allocation. Because if you use dynamic allocation, you will just get the first device that matches your criteria. So if you just ask for a for example, iPhone, well, let's say iOS 12, and it needs to be a phone, you will just get the first device which is available, which is a phone, and secondly has iOS 12, making it much faster for you to respond and to execute your automation.
All right, do we have more questions? So I have one. You gave a demo on how to use the virtual USB runner on a Mac, but can I also use it on a Windows machine?
Yes, you can. You can use the runner on a Windows machine. You can just download it, like explained also on the wiki. So that's not a problem. You can just use it on whatever system. You can use it on Mac. You can use it on Windows and even on Linux.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just confirm we can use public or private devices for virtual USB. No, only private devices. With public devices, it does not work since you have full access to the whole device, everything, logs, CPU usage, and you don't want to have a device where you use that and then somebody else is able to access that device as well. So that's why we restricted it to the private device cloud. I hope that answers the question. Okay, well, yeah, thank you. All right, well, feel free to post some more questions. I think we have some 2-3 minutes left for our talk. If not, I can already maybe switch to the last slide of ours. So if there is further questions during the day, feel free to join us on Slack. We have created a special channel for virtual USB, which you can just find virtual-USB, and Wim and I will be available there to answer further questions, and very, very happy to do that. All right, well then, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of our SaaSCon.
Okay, good luck.